Midnight, the coldest night, 1943. The German sentries swore they heard ghosts. On the edges of the Eastern Front, under a moonless Russian sky, a faint rustling drifted through the air, like wind brushing over canvas, like something drifting rather than flying. Then came the whisper the Germans feared most.
Nachthexen.
The night witches. They weren't spirits. They weren't myths. They were teenage girls and young women, pilots of the Soviet 588th Night Bomber Regiment, flying plywood biplanes that should have belonged in a museum, not a war. But somehow, these obsolete little aircraft slipped past German radar, glided in silence, and dropped bombs with surgical precision. They were too slow to track, too small to hit, and too fearless to contain. And on that night in 1943, as the German camp settled beneath the frozen dark, they had no idea that death was already circling, carried by wings made of wood, cloth, and unimaginable courage. 046. Into the night. Each mission began the same way. The women climbed into their Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes, engines sputtering, wings creaking, radio silent. No one trusted these planes in the day, and yet, under cover of darkness, they became instruments of terror. The night witches flew low, skimming treetops, hugging valleys, and slipping past German searchlights. Every shadow could be a patrol. Every gust of wind could flip the fragile craft. They weren't just flying planes, they were defying every expectation of war. Young girls with less than a few dozen hours of night flight training became hunters in the black sky, turning the quiet Eastern Front into a living nightmare for the Wehrmacht. They knew the cost. If caught, they would be captured, tortured, executed, or forgotten. And yet, their courage didn't falter. Every night they went up, they carried the weight of an entire nation, of families counting on each bomb to slow the enemy, and of the promise that bravery could come in the most unexpected forms. 201. The attack that terrified an army. On a bitter night over the Kuban front, a squadron of 12 night witches climbed silently into the ink-black sky. The German soldiers below barely stirred, confident that such fragile, outdated planes posed no real threat. Then the whispering engines cut through the night. One by one, bombs fell with deadly precision, igniting fuel depots and tearing apart supply lines. The Germans scrambled, trying to track these invisible ghosts, but the biplanes were gone before they could fire. Planes dipped, climbed, and circled again, each pilot a shadow, each shadow a nightmare. The night witches struck again and again, their courage amplified by the simplicity of their planes. What the world saw as obsolete, slow, fragile, powerless, became a weapon the enemy could not predict or counter. By morning, the battlefield was chaos, morale shattered, and the Germans had a new name whispered in fear.
Nachthexen.
Even the Luftwaffe aces admitted it quietly in reports. These were not mere pilots. They were relentless. They were untouchable. They were living proof that determination, skill, and audacity could bend history. 331. Legacy of the Night Witches. By the end of the war, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment had flown over 30,000 missions, dropped over 23,000 tons of bombs, and struck fear into the hearts of seasoned German soldiers. These young women, armed with nothing but courage and fragile wooden planes, had rewritten the rules of aerial warfare. They proved that heroism wasn't measured by speed, firepower, or glamour, but by fearlessness, ingenuity, and resolve. Their bravery inspired generations. They shattered stereotypes, challenged expectations, and left a legacy that lives on in history books, museums, and the hearts of those who dare to defy the impossible. So when you hear the faint whisper of a biplane in the night, remember the night witches, girls who flew through fear, soared above prejudice, and reminded the world that courage has no limits.